Yes, team, and a huge welcome to the TMP podcast. Today we have a good friend of mine, Mr. Jonny Pierce. He's one of the leading coaches in Northern Ireland and Ireland, and this guy's client list is phenomenal. He works with some of the top entrepreneurs, celebrities, musicians, comedians, you name it. They all come back to this guy. Absolute pleasure and honor to have him on the podcast. Welcome, Jonny.
Mate, it's a pleasure to be here. We're here in Internet City and the Wi-Fi is unbelievable.
Well, we first met out here in Dubai. Did you come over for a business event or was it a holiday?
I think initially it was a holiday. It was like a longer trip that I had planned, but it was like a working trip at the start, and then we kind of connected through some friends.
That's it, yeah. And since then, whenever Johnny's over, he pops his head in and we have a good old laugh, don't we?
Always, yeah. I arrived on Friday and caught up with yourself and Teal, which was a good experience.
Yeah. Tail's the big dog.
It is. Teal was kayaking yesterday.
Yeah. Took the dog out kayaking. He didn't like it.
No?
They always look amazing in the pictures. They all look happy, but he didn't like the water.
Didn't fancy it.
No, I didn't.
The life jacket wasn't the one.
No. So why don't you just run through what it is that you do, whether it's the clients you coach or the type of transformations that you do, your company. Yeah, just give us an overview.
Yeah, so essentially right now we're on a program called Built for Better Business. We help business owners and high performers look, feel and perform better than they ever have done before. And essentially for me, the journey that I've been on and the journey that I'm currently going on, a lot's changed over time. The people that I now work with, it's completely different. And it kind of started off with you work with everyone and anyone, and like any business owner, you kind of start to find your people and the people that you enjoy working with, you enjoy helping, you enjoy the conversations that you can have and the impact that you can then have on that person because you can actually relate to the journey they're on. So I think I now work with people who are similar to me. They're on this journey where they're driving their business forward, and sometimes their health, energy and performance has took a back seat, and they're kind of struggling to kind of have that priority shift where they can fit other stuff in other than just business because they're driven by their business targets, but also they've got families, kids, relationships, and they've obviously got their health to consider. So that's kind of a lot of what we do. And then over time we've been building into more of a corporate setting and working inside businesses and helping them and their staff with their health, energy and performance, because I think it's vital to be able to work on that.
Yeah, there's something you said right at the beginning that stood out to me, which was you used to work with anyone and everyone, and I actually think that's a step that a lot of people in coaching in general across all fields of coaching are actually forgetting to do the 10,000 hours of working with everyone. I did 100 hours unpaid in my field as I was studying to be a therapist and coach, and I think that's forgotten about, that apprenticeship of how do I ask questions, and I think a lot of younger coaches that come into the industry, they're like, right, I only want to work with CEOs or I only want to work with this. But I kind of think you have to earn the right a little bit. Absolutely.
And I think so many people try and skip the steps in between. So maybe they're trying to achieve something incredible and they want to work with the highest performing people. And that's great. But I think you need to do the hard yards and do the basics well over time. And I think so many people try and skip those steps to the point that they feel that they're able to do it, and they see someone that they perceive to be successful working within a current niche and they think, all right, well, I'm going to do that because that's already worked well with that person. But I think they need to find out what feels right for you, because you could shape your whole business around what someone else wants and someone else values and someone else cares about, to the point that you actually lose yourself in the process and you start actually hating your business because you've built it around someone else's goals, someone else's values, someone else's priorities at that time. And I think it's so important to actually do the basics, and working with everyone and anyone was good because it taught me so much, and it taught me things that I wouldn't have learned if I had have just said, right, I only work with business owners straight from the start, because that kind of cuts out a lot of the actual people that you need to learn from, to the point that you can then help people. But also what you find over time as your audience changes and you find your people, some of the challenges that you maybe overcame with clients at the start are still similar, when you might not have thought that person would have struggled with something like that.
Yeah, that's very true. But then also I think, again, it comes down to earning the right. So a friend of mine, this is about 3 years ago, and he was like, yeah, I'm going to coach like CEOs. That's my thing. I was like, yeah, how many are you coaching? Oh, none. Yeah. I was like, well, why do you want to coach CEOs? He was like, well, they pay a lot higher and they're much easier to coach. I was like, but you haven't coached any, so you don't know if that's true. And he goes, yeah, but I've got friends that coach CEOs. And I was like, right, okay, well, but first of all, you don't know if that's true. Second of all, why does a CEO want to work with you? Not only do you not have any experience, but you're essentially trying to charge them more and do less work. Like his whole values set. And he kind of went, oh, that kind of hurts. And I said, but that's the reality, you know?
And I think there needs to be evidence of something coming true, because so many people say, oh, I'm going to start working with this niche. But the reason I started working with the people that I now work with is because 50% of my clientele were those people. So I thought, why not work with more people just like that? And I think there was evidence of what I wanted coming true, because I had done the hard yards for 5, 6, 7 years previous. And then I've been like, right, well, these people are drawn to me, so it must be how I'm speaking, how I'm presenting myself. And also, I think whenever someone thinks about working with someone in the coaching space, i.e. someone wants to work on their mental performance, they want to work with you, but they've followed you for a long time, they've listened to how you speak, how you articulate yourself, and they think to themselves, I can relate to Kieran. And the same happened for me, because people were obviously relating to how I was speaking, how I was showing up, and the things that I cared about and things I valued, because you draw people to you through what you're putting out, don't you?
And I think building a coaching business is different to building so many others, because if you're somebody that's actually doing the coaching delivery, and a lot of people hired coaches, you've hired coaches, I've hired coaches, you know, but when you're building a coaching business, often you've built it because you care, and you've built it because there's a certain type of impact on a certain type of person you want to have. Whereas when you're building other companies, it's completely different. And I do think you need to tap into the psychological reasoning as to, well, why do I want to help that person? Why is this important to me? And what fulfillment and connection can you get in that process? But I do think you have to do the hard yards of, I'll coach anyone and everyone until I start to understand what I like and what I don't like. So run me through the business journey. So like, where did you start? We were talking in the car and you were like, I used to work in a leisure centre. Like,
yeah, so I used to work in the local leisure centre, and that kind of exposed me to the fitness industry. At the time, I was studying sports coaching at university, and I wanted to be a teacher, so I was doing sports coaching because that was the only course I could get into at the time. And I thought, wow, well, if I do this degree, then I can do my PGCE, which is the equivalent of what you need to do be a teacher in Ireland. And then I did that, and I was working a ton of hours, so I was working loads in the leisure centre, so I actually got a full-time contract while I was doing my university degree. And then over time, I was also building out a personal training business where I was working with people on the gym floor, coaching one-to-one. So my hours and my week was crazy, and I look back on those times and I'm like, how did I ever operate like that? How did I ever show up like that? How did I actually find the time to fit everything in? But essentially, I had a goal, I had a target, and it drove me forward, and I knew that I could work every single hour of every single day, even whenever I didn't feel like it, because I knew I had this goal. Then over time, the personal training started to take off, and I kind of built momentum. I built a really good reputation in the space. I was working in an area called Lisburn in Northern Ireland, and I just became the go-to guy for people that wanted to get in shape, and it was for everyone and anyone. The types of results I was producing was just everyone. So you could have the 40-year-old business owner, and then you could have the 20-year-old shift worker, and it was just such a mix of people, but it was great. And then over time, the personal training started to take off, and then I thought, wow, and leaving a full-time job is scary. So maybe there's someone listening to this that has a job right now that's secure and pays them every single month, and then they're going to leave all of that to start and grow this business. But the way I looked at it was like, I kind of focused on getting 6 months of my bills covered and just handed in my notice. And it felt uncomfortable at the time, but I was like, if I'm not going to do it now. And the other frame I used for myself was like, there's always going to be a job, and for me, in the leisure centre, and there's nothing wrong with working in a leisure centre, but I knew that they always needed staff, they always needed a team, and I knew that I could always get that job back. So I literally did a couple of classes in the gym, and I was like, I love this. So then that's kind of what led to the personal training, and then the personal training built out, and over time, just transitioned into coaching people online because I realized I could have more of an impact and could change more lives. And then it's kind of came to what it is today. So bit of a journey, but equally.
Well, hang on, you skipped a couple of steps.
Yeah.
So you skipped a couple of steps insofar as you got to the personal trainer, fully booked business, but then what happened? Then you went online, right?
Well, personal trainer, and then started group training. So I realized, right, I'm getting inundated with queries. My waiting list is 3 pages long. How can I actually fit these people in? So then we created this group training approach where we could actually train 4 or 5 people at once, and they could still get value, still get results. And then following that, then we built into kind of just starting online coaching on the side. So it was kind of like a side project while I was doing my personal training, but I didn't really have the time to dedicate it. It was kind of like the leisure centre situation all over again, where I was working all these hours and I was trying to fit in the personal training session. Then the personal training sessions were going crazy, and I was trying to fit in this online coaching thing. And then over time, there was evidence of something coming true again. So I realized People were getting unbelievable results with this online thing. There was people that weren't in my area that could now work with me because they wanted to, but there was an option for them to do that. And then it was just like kind of about the standard, like we're going to get really lean, and it was that kind of coaching, like how lean can we get, and a lot's changed since then. And then following that, we created a program called Average to Unstoppable. So originally it was the Jonny show, and then I hired one of my clients, and he was a long-term client. And it was an interesting story because sometimes you think about when you should hire someone, and for me, he had been offered an opportunity which drove me to action and created urgency. So he was in a job that he didn't really like, and he had been presented with this opportunity to get a new job. And he was celebrating a win with me. So he was a client celebrating a win, and I was like, oh, I had picked you as my guy. You were gonna be my guy, and now you've told me that you've got another opportunity. So literally the worst way to hire someone, but I just voice noted him and said, hey, what's your thoughts on doing X, Y, and Z? I know you've been presented with this opportunity through someone else, but I would love you to come in, and you've been through the journey. I trust you. You have been super committed to the process. You possess all the values that I would want within someone that was working inside the program. And send him the voice note, and he joined on, and then he kind of ran the Average to Unstoppable thing for a couple of years. It was great. We were hosting incredible events. We were having a huge impact, and we used to, the program Average to Unstoppable, we used to call it our kind of tagline as such. And I need to remember this because I haven't said it in a while. It was Average to Unstoppable. We help people transform their body and mind so that they can build unstoppable confidence. And that was what it was all about. And we built momentum with that. And then over time, kind of business owners were coming into that Average to Unstoppable thing. And we were taking someone from average to unstoppable, but then a business owner didn't see themselves as average, but they were still being drawn to this program. So I thought, what do I need to change? And then I thought, right, well, what does a business owner want to be? So they value their business, they care about their business, but they want to be built for a better business, and they want to get to a point where they have the health, the energy, the performance to actually show up and grow their business. And since then, like, I've had the opportunity to speak on stages in front of hundreds of business owners. I've hosted events with hundreds of business owners that I never thought I would do, and speaking in public was never something that was on my agenda, but it was kind of this doing the yards, doing the reps, and then over time you got presented with an opportunity to publicly speak. And then I also thought to myself, if I can publicly speak, I'm going to have more of an impact on my clients, because then I can deliver trainings, I can deliver education, I can deliver support, and I can also speak in front of a group of people that I can then add value to in the form of just listening information. Obviously information doesn't provide them the opportunity to implement, but yeah, does that cover everything? Doesn't cover everything, but covers some.
Well, it's part of the story, right? Because you made the switch from on the gym floor to hiring a team. I mean, run me through the team now. How are you set up?
Yeah, so right now we've got myself, who I love coaching, right? So I want to stick with the coaching. That's for me. And then we've got Matthew, who works full time in the program. He's there every single day. He's unbelievable, and he's completely changed the game for us. And then we've kind of just got marketing, who runs like video content. And I used to have my sister helping with some copy, but I actually realized I really enjoyed the copy side of things. And she had a couple of kids, and then it didn't work out for her, so she didn't have the time for it. So I thought, I'm going to lean back into this because I had to enjoy it. On the plane here, I wrote 15 posts.
Yeah, nice. There is something about plane writing where you got no internet, no distractions, no nothing. I don't know about you, but I never connect to the Wi-Fi on the plane, because otherwise it just ruins that bubble in that state. But you can get so much done for just locking in, putting your headphones on and going, right, let's go.
It's unbelievable. And I think there's no distractions, and you kind of have this feeling, well, there's nothing else I can do. I could sit and watch a movie that's not adding any value in my life, but I've got this window of, to here it was 7 hours, and I was like, I don't need to work for the full 7 hours, of course, but I knew that I could lock in for 3 hours, and in 3 hours I had the 15 posts written. And I also spend time thinking on planes. I don't know about you.
Journaling, yeah, some of my best ideas happen when I'm in the air.
And thinking time is something that we probably don't factor in enough. I know personally I don't factor in enough when I'm at home, because you're in the trenches, you're working so hard, you've got these goals, you've got these aspirations, you've got these things that you're working towards, and then you just never stop and think. And sometimes for me, it takes for me to come somewhere like this and be in a completely different environment. The plane's great, but also being in a completely different environment, spending time alone. And spending time alone was something that I used to feel really uncomfortable with. And I've got to a point where I actually love my time alone now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I find if I'm craving time alone, it means my diary and my life just gotten a little too crowded. Too many events, too many one-to-one sessions, just too much stuff. But you've I think, did you come last week?
Yeah, so just end of last week arrived, yeah.
So every Wednesday I have a King Day, and on that King Day it's an afternoon off. So I don't work in the mornings, I work in the afternoon and the evening, and having that King Day just allows me to do nothing. And I put this into the diary of many of my business owner clients, of just switch off. And it might only be an hour or 2 hours or whatever, but you can do whatever you like in that time. Sometimes I'll just be alone. Sometimes I'll go down the beach, I'll sit by the pool. Sometimes I'll go and play squash or chess with a mate of mine. And that little period every Wednesday not only allows me to come in really sharp Wednesday night, Thursday, Friday, but it is that thinking time, because a lot of your best ideas don't happen at the desk behind the laptop. They happen when you're doing other stuff. And that for me is just so simple. And I've done that for the last 3 years now, and I almost never compromise. It'll take something quite big for me to compromise on that.
Yeah, there's this culture back home, and it's like people were busy as a badge of honor, and if you're not busy, you're not doing well. And I think business owners back home condition themselves to almost work this corporate job, even though they run and own the business, and they've conditioned themselves to be like, oh well, I can't do X at 12 o'clock because I should be working. And you've got this feeling like you should be working, but that Wednesday day for you, for example, is the thing that puts you in a position to nail the rest of the week, to show off your clients in a better fashion. And I think people don't realise that, and sometimes Northern Ireland can be a little bit behind on those things, and they kind of consider like, oh well, like, why aren't you working and why aren't you behind your laptop? But then when you spend all day every day behind your laptop, it actually becomes unproductive anyway, so you're not actually getting any value from it. And it's this priority shift to be like, oh well, because I think it comes down to values, doesn't it? So it's like, what does someone really care about? They care about providing for their family. In our client scenario, they care about providing for their family. They care about growing their business so that people respect them in the community. They care about performing at their very, very best and being a leader. And often they think that time away takes them away from those things, but I think they need to maybe apply value stacking and be like, well, hey, if I actually take this time off, that's going to benefit all of those things. Does that make sense?
Yeah, there's a book called The Luck Factor. Have you read it?
No.
Great book. I'll send you a copy. So this book talks about luck and how the difference between lucky people and unlucky people. And what they found was actually lucky people had a different mindset to unlucky people in general. There was a guy called Richard Wiseman. So he studied luck for, I think it was 10 years. And he was actually at the university next to my hometown. So really interesting dude. That's how I come across him. And what they found was there's a series of different traits between the lucky and the unlucky people. And one of the interesting things about the lucky people was they believed they were lucky, but they also had more time and space. So the world was so busy, they often had more opportunities to spot, hang on, everybody's racing towards this destination, but actually this way, this is what I think is going to really happen. And it does go to show, I definitely read the book, but the more tight little pockets of space that you can create for yourself, the more you're going to spot things, the better ideas you're going to have. And also just rest and recovery in general is going to be a hell of a lot higher. Obviously, too much space, you don't get anything done. But I do think the busy is a badge of honor thing. It's not just Ireland or Northern Ireland, but in London all the time, It's like everyone's tired. When I go home, everyone looks tired because of this go, 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 go mentality, And we've got it here. People work really hard, but they do balance play a lot more. Part of that will be to do with the climate, because we have more sun, so you can get outside more. You want to get out and do more stuff, but
sometimes it could be a bit of an escape as well. I think whenever maybe someone's in a poor place mentally, for example, they know the one thing that they're good at is business, so they're just going to lean back into work and business and just do everything that they can to escape their current reality.
That's exactly what I spent most of my life doing when I was boxing, so fighting, and then software sales. I used to love breakups because I'd sell more.
Yeah.
I used to love breakup because
It's
if I
crazy.
go for a breakup, I'd want to distract myself from so much of the pain. I'd be thinking, I don't want to do that, so I'd be working harder in my software sales role to go and get more business. And it made me feel validated because you got the external, this has been ticked, but also you don't have to deal with the pain. And I think it's a very common thing, is kind of using your business as an excuse to really do the inner work as to what's holding you up.
And that's why that Wednesday, for example, is so hard to commit to, because you've locked it in and you've done all the work on yourself to the point that you can be happy with taking a Wednesday afternoon or a morning off. Whereas a lot of guys maybe outside of your world, i.e. people who aren't clients and people who aren't involved in personal development, they maybe haven't realized that that is actually a thing. And also, like, it takes self-awareness to understand that. So you and I have both done the work, and we've worked on ourselves and developed and progressed, so we can look at areas where we're potentially falling down. But I also think that people outside of the space, i.e. they've never worked with someone like yourself, or they've never actually done something to progress themselves, they maybe are unaware of the fact that this could actually benefit them. And sometimes they need to understand the why behind that, because whenever you think about someone that comes to me, for example, inside a coaching journey for their health, energy and performance, right? Often they come in a position where they're unaware of the impact that it's currently having, and they've just normalized the way that they currently feel, and to the point that their standards are down here whenever they could be up here, their energy's down here whenever it could be up here, their health markers are down here whenever they could be up here, all because they've just been unaware of the fact that, hey, this can actually benefit my business, hey, this can actually benefit my relationships. If I had more confidence, more energy, and I felt better about myself, would I grow my business? Yes. Would I improve my relationship? Yes. Would my life get better? Yes. And it's just kind of sometimes that unaware individual that doesn't necessarily get it.
Well, most business owners are more stressed than they realised, and because it becomes normalised, they don't really know. I've fallen foul of that many times, and our good friend Mike has pointed that out to me. Like, I think you're more stressed than you realise. Yeah, but I used to be miles more stressed in this role or in this business or whatever. But your overall stress levels sometimes can fly underneath the radar, which again is holding you back, slower, less productive, more reactive, more emotional than you need to be. It makes a big difference. But I want to touch on the inner work, because you've done a lot of inner work. So what would you say, you know, Kieran, the hardest piece of inner work I've ever had to do, the one that really hurt me and shook me, and you don't have to go into specifics of any contexts if you don't feel comfortable, but what would you say is like, you know what, Kieran, the biggest thing that snapped me was X?
Now we're on to the big questions.
Yeah, it was all nice about stress and performance, wasn't it?
Yeah. I think for me, I've done a lot of work on not needing to prove myself. And I think I spent a lot of my life needing to prove myself to others, and also needing to prove myself to myself and say, hey, I can actually do these things. I can actually achieve this success. I can actually make something of myself whenever everyone told me that I couldn't. I remember leaving that leisure centre job. One of my colleagues had handed my notice, and they said to me, I'm sure I'll see you back here in a few months anyway. And it was almost like this one driver. It was like, I'm going to prove that person wrong. And I haven't spoke to that person since, but it's funny how one comment you can think about it and almost use it as the fuel to drive you forward. But then that's also doing things for the wrong reasons. And I've realized over time that whenever you build a business, you're either doing one of two things. You're either running away from something, or you're running towards something. And at the start of my business, I was running away from fear, insecurity, a lack of confidence, and a poor financial situation. And I was running away from all those things. And I was like, if I can get away from all these things, my life will get better. And I also think the actual true confidence in myself was lacking, and it wasn't there. And and I'm sure a lot of people in the fitness space do this too, where they build their body to the point that they think, if I look unbelievable, I have to be confident. And in my world, some of the people that I know in the best shape that I've met over the years, sometimes they're the most insecure people, because they're putting their time and effort and energy into building their body because they feel that that's going to solve their lack of confidence. And for me, that was the thought process. I was like, oh, well, if I get super shredded and I do this photo shoot, I'm guaranteed to be confident. I'm guaranteed to grow my business. I'm guaranteed to improve. And then I had that experience where I did the photo shoot. I looked unbelievable. People from the outside in would think he must feel incredible. And I actually felt way worse than I did before. I had way more insecurities, and I was picking out at the littlest things. Oh, like there's a little bit of body fat on my oblique. And I was like, this is horrendous. So then I started to do the deep work, and then I also realized that, was I doing everything that I was doing for the wrong reasons? To have the things so people could perceive me to be the success that I wanted to be. And then I realized, after meeting loads of super successful people, that the people that are the most successful show the least, and they don't necessarily, you know, I've got this one guy inside the program, and he's an unbelievable business owner, hugely successful, and he will drive a 15-year-old car, and he'll show up and he'll wear basic enough clothes, and there's something really that I respect about that, because I know that he is sure of himself and he doesn't need to prove himself to others. So that's probably one of the biggest challenges that I needed to overcome, was I've got this kind of need to prove myself to everyone, but where is that actually coming from, and how can I actually move away from that to the point that I actually can just be confident in myself and be happy with where I'm at and be happy with what I've achieved, and not need to drive a yellow car or wear a Louis Vuitton belt or wear a fancy watch to actually show that I am successful, because I know that I'm successful now. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that I've had to work on, because you can make loads of mistakes on that journey to the point that you actually move backwards due to your need to validate yourself to yourself and to other people.
Reminds me of what you said in the car on the way over here about the question that I asked you that caught you.
Great question.
It sounds like, I think at that time you'd pretty much done most of the work anyway, right? But
Well, I think when we first met, I still was in that mindset, and even coming to Dubai was a little bit of a, oh, look at me, I'm in Dubai, I'm able to do this thing. And you asked me this question, and I think everyone can benefit from this question. It was, Jonny, if we took all your things away from you, your business, your car, the things that you have, your house, would you still be enough? And I remember I spent like 7 hours in the flight home thinking about that question, because at that point I wouldn't have been enough, because I was wrapping my whole identity in everything that I had. And thanks to you asking me that question, I'm not saying that one question changed everything for me, but it definitely got me thinking, and I was actually unaware of how I was operating. But the question that you asked me steered me in the direction that I was like, hey, would I be enough? And that at that point I wouldn't be. So then I started to kind of try and do more things outside of business as well off the back of that question. I was like, I'm more than just this coach that helps all these business owners. There's more to me. There's layers to who I am. And yeah, great question.
Well, that's like the armor, you know. A lot of young men like to armor up with things and six packs, and that's very much my story. When I jump on your podcast, you'll hear more on that. But if we look at the unconscious, whether it's evolution, whether it's society, whether it's social psychology, whatever, right? Men want to be able to fight or
I can't
compete. No, you can play football though. You fight on the pitch. Fight, make money, have a six-pack, be strong, and have women, right? And sometimes men can overly focus on just those external things, the stuff, that they forget that there's more to it than just that. When your identity, and even we met Whoopsie out on Friday, right? Guy rocks up, everything Louis Vuitton, wants to buy the most expensive stuff, and he didn't really want to talk to us because he was shy and he was anxious, and he's kind of whiting on himself because he'd built his whole persona around the stuff. And you can feel it when somebody's not truly embodied and aligned with who they are, and they're using the stuff as a shield, so to speak.
100%. And it's like this crutch that you're like constantly going back to. I'm like, hey, if I'm wearing this, it's all okay, and people will think I'm successful. But doing all the work on myself and getting to a point where I am good within myself, I feel great and I feel confident, I now look to the things that I used to do and I'm like, oh, I actually feel sorry for that person. Whereas before, whenever I was doing that and I was in the kind of realm of doing all those things, I was like, I looked up to the people that had the better stuff than I did. And I think it's like, we're talking about stuff. I think it's nice to have nice things, and you can still have nice things, but I was having nice things for the wrong reasons. And actually it was a funny thing that I had this car that I had, and it was my dream car. I bought this yellow BMW M4 competition, and I've always wanted this, right?
Did you always want it in yellow?
Yeah. Yellow. Yellow just added to the fact that I needed to be seen. But the yellow BMW M4, right? Everyone knew me as the guy with the M4 because it's a rare car. It's yellow. It stands out. Everyone's going to see you when you're driving it. And I also had placed my identity in the fact that I drove this car. And I thought that leaving this car behind, which I now have, is me moving backwards. And I had to do a little bit of work on that. So that was like kind of just over a year on. I was like, oh, I'm actually leaving this yellow car thing behind because everyone knows me. I'm like, oh, do you when you bumped into someone, do you still have the M4? Like, that was an unbelievable car. But I realized that the reason I had that car was, yes, I wanted it, and yes, it was my dream car, and I've now got it out of my system to the point that, like, I've had it, I'm happy now, and I'm glad I did it. But equally, at that time, was I doing it for the wrong reason? To then all the naysayers that told me I wouldn't be successful, I was going to be able to pull up in this car and say, hey, how's it going?
So if no one else could know about the yellow car, would you still have got it?
I don't know. I think I was going to answer straight away no, but I loved the car. People talk about things not making you happy. Whenever I drove that car, I had a big smile on my face. And that's why things can be good whenever you do it at the right time for the right reasons and you've worked towards it and it's a symbol of your success. But at the time that I bought that car, it was for the wrong reasons. And I felt that, I remember driving it home and you would have just looked out the window and seen who was looking at you. And I was kind of thinking, I wasn't thinking that at the time, but now looking back, I'm like, this is for all the wrong reasons. And yeah, it was just an interesting journey with the kind of car and the things and how it made me feel at the time. But equally, if I got something now, it would be for the right reasons and for the smile that it brings to my face whenever I put the foot down.
Yeah.
Within the speed limit.
I always have this diet. I don't really have it anymore. I probably let it go about a year ago, but I love watches. Really, really love watches. It was always my thing. When I was 18, I had a really good hot streak in sales and bought a Breitling Super Ocean 42.
Epic.
Beautiful, loved it. Had to sell it when I decided to leave that to try and fight at the Olympics. I was like, oh, I'll get you back one day. And then I got to a position where I could get it back. And I asked myself, I had it on my wrist, and they didn't make them anymore, so I had to source it, and we found it, and I had it on my wrist, and I was like, if no one else could know about me having this watch, would I still have it? And the answer was no. So I didn't buy it. And I've worn this watch. I've worn this watch for years. It's actually my dad's watch, and when I look at what that watch represented, there's another one that I've tried on a couple of times, and I'm like, I probably still wouldn't buy it. I don't need it. When I put them next to each other, like the value of this watch, my dad used to work in a factory, works his nuts off. He really put good work ethic into me. He used to wear this watch every day. We got it for him for Father's Day when I was a kid. I was really young. The value of this trumps, and I live in a world full of big watches, right? People
big time
showing them off, and I'm like, I wouldn't swap this thing not for $1 million. This thing is worth a hell of a lot more. So I think with things, like you said, the right reasons, the right stories, there's nothing wrong with an attachment to things, but if it's a validation tool.
Yeah, and one of my biggest things that I think society has created is, whenever someone would have been speaking about me to someone else back then, it would have been, that's that guy Jonny, he does that like health and fitness stuff, and he's the guy with the M4.
Yeah, linked to a thing.
Yeah, so it's like, oh, like, do you know so-and-so? Like, he drives that car, and sometimes I hear other people doing it. I'm like, oh yeah, do you know that guy? Like, he's got that car, and you know, he's super successful. But why is the car the only symbol of success for me? Then I got to a point where I was like, my symbols of success and my opportunities to show that I'm doing a great job was hosting an event, having over 100 people in a room, and saying, hey, I'm actually helping all these people. And that's way more of a flex than any car, any watch ever will be.
Yeah. I think my flex is an existential flex. And I think if you can find work that you absolutely genuinely love and adore, and you have a positive impact on the world, and you can be well paid for it, you can find those things from a working perspective outside of work, right? We're not talking about family, children, dogs, partner, all these things. We're not talking about that. But I think from a professional standpoint, like, if you can find work that you genuinely love and adore, and it has a real positive impact on the world, and it puts you in a place financially where you can provide and protect and do all the things you want to do, like, that for me is the secret. That for me is the secret sauce. I think everything else is like, because we spend so much of our time at work, so you might as well do something that you love than trying to do something that you absolutely hate, but you've got the yellow car and the big watch and all the other stuff, you know?
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing that will bring you the most satisfaction is when you spend some time looking back through all of your client results, and you're like, hey, I've actually helped those people so much. And now, to me, the things that will bring me more than what external things will ever do is just looking through people we've helped, the impact we've had, the messages that they've sent, the videos that they've shared, the results that they've been able to achieve, because you know that you're genuinely changing someone's life and you're having an impact. But the feeling of that is, it far trumps any car that I've ever had, anything that I've ever had. And it just feels so good because you're on this path of doing something you're incredibly passionate about. You're having such an impact on someone's life, and it feels great.
For me, like, I could be having the worst day ever, and then I have a client one-to-one and everything's fucking phenomenal. Like, life is just amazing. Like, I come off those calls and I'm like, oh, thank God I do this. This is amazing, you know?
Especially when you have those breakthroughs that you're having with your clients.
Yeah. And they don't look at themselves the same. Like, that for me transcends everything. Like, it really transcends a hell of a lot. But I want to take the conversation on a different track. So a lot of people in your audience will say, yeah, Jonny's got this nailed. Jonny's sussed it. We know Jonny's sussed it. Look at Jonny. But there'll be stuff that you wrestle with on a day-to-day. So if we was going to peel back the layer, what's something that you find hard and you find difficult?
I think I find it difficult because I've got such high standards for myself, and I've got all these goals, aspirations, and things that I want to work towards. And sometimes I get so hung up on the actual goal and the target to the point that it really frustrates me because I'm not there yet. And I'm working on falling in love with the process. I'm working on doing the boring stuff well over time. I'm working on remembering that it's not about the actual goal or the target, it's about who I become in pursuit of the goal or the target. And I think that's what I find difficult. And I think no one has it all figured out. Often we'll look to people that are uber successful and we'll think they have it all. But that's our perception of what we see and what they share. But you're not there when times get tough. You're not there when things get difficult. You're not there whenever they feel at their worst. Because I think in the coaching space, and me as a coach helping all these people with their health, energy and performance, people think that I'm positive all the time, but we know as part of the human experience there's going to be down days, there's going to be challenging days. It's not always going to be perfect, it's not always going to be plain sailing, but it's about having more good days than bad. And for me, sometimes it's just difficult because you're constantly, from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed, you think about your goals and you think about what you need to do to get there, and you take it day by day. But whenever that's the first thought when you wake up and the last thought that when you go to bed, it can become a bit challenging, and it can add a lot of weight on your shoulders, and it can make you feel tired sometimes because you feel like you're always on. even though you might not be working 24/7, your mind is always on. And right now, if I was thinking about what Jonny struggles with at this moment in time, it is that. And I think whenever I listen to podcasts, you know what I get the most from is whenever someone's open, honest and vulnerable. They're a leader in their space, but they share something that they've actually struggled with. And for me, it's literally constantly thinking about my goals all day, every day. And people might think, oh, well, how's that a challenge? How's that a struggle? But whenever you live with that all day, every single day, it's hard to just sit and walk your dog and just be a normal person, because it's it's a pretty abnormal thing to do, to constantly think about that, and then to the point that you're walking your dog and you're still thinking about it, or you're out with your friends and you're still thinking about it.
What if we killed your goals? What would happen?
I'd probably be bored.
Should be bored or just not anxious?
I think for me, there's a goal of just feeling calm and in control.
But then you're thinking a lot about being calm and in control, or so when you're saying these goals, right, are they outcomes? Are they finite measured outcomes? Is it, right, I want to get the company to X amount of revenue and Y amount of profit? Is it, I want to be a certain way? Like when you're talking about these goals, I'm curious, because a lot of people come to me like, I don't know what my goals are. Or on the flip side, it's very rarely is I don't know what my goals are. Actually, it's the opposite. Here are my goals, and I'm really stressed and anxious about them, right? So I'm just curious, like, the goals that you're talking about that you can't stop thinking about from when you wake up, and might even keep you up at night. Like, what goals are we talking about?
I think it's the goal of feeling calm and in control while still having a big impact. And it's not to do with numbers, because numbers aren't necessarily going to change anything right now. It's just going to be a number on the screen. It's about the feeling of impacting more people, changing more lives, but also feeling calm and in control while I'm doing it.
And is that the thing you're thinking about in the mornings and the evenings?
As
I need to be more calm and in control. I need to be more calm and in control. I need to impact more lives. This is the bit I'm curious about, right? What is the... Because sometimes...
Feels like a session, Kieran.
Well, I'm curious, right? Because when we talk about goals...
Yeah, no, good. This is good.
When you talk about goals...
Yeah.
Some people actually hamstring themselves by their goals and thus underperform from what they're capable of, from this clinging of, got to go to the goal, got to go to the goal, got to go to the goal. So I'm really curious, if there is a goal... Right,
well, I think it's really an infinite goal, is like the pursuit of constantly becoming better. So then I'll never win. Like having this conversation, because I'm like, all right, well, how can I be better today? How can I improve? How can I do something better than I didn't do yesterday? So that is a goal that's never going to end, because it's the way I'm wired. It's what I care about. So I'm never going to win that goal, aren't I?
No. So you're just going to be burning up energy, right? Because I said, what do you struggle with? You said the frustration between trying to hit the goal and thinking about the goal, and I wake up and think about it in the morning, and I think about it in the evening, right? So my job as a mental performance consultant is to analyze, well, where is this human spending so much energy that they don't need to be spending energy on? So if that's the thing at the moment that you're spending so much time on, is how can I be better? How can I be better? How can I achieve the goal? How can I become the person that achieves the goal? That's why I asked you, why don't we kill the goals? What if we just went... Now, I'm not saying that you don't have standards, because often when I say let's take away the goals, people get scared. I won't do anything, I'll get bored, or I'll sabotage, or well, what if actually instead of these, I need to be better, what if being better is just being more at peace with, well, I'm on the journey anyway, so that's cool, and I'm doing the things to get better, and that's cool. But I don't need to force it. Just like a football player. You know, when you see a football player, they're on a trial, or they've just signed for a new team, and they're trying to force things, and they're so tense, and they're so stiff, and, you know, they're trying to bring the ball down in the most beautiful way, but because they're so stiff, the ball bounces off their foot, and their first touch is all over the place. And then you get those other players that just stroll in like it's another day at the office, and the first touch is brilliant, and then they knock the ball off, and then they run, and away they go, you know? what if, I mean, Thierry Henry's a great example. He didn't tear up trees when he first arrived at Arsenal. He was very nervous, very anxious, very tense. And then Arsene Wenger calmed him down, the team calmed him down, played him through the middle, and then he became a king. Not through, he had a ferocity and an engine, but he wasn't tense. He was very smooth. He'd get the ball and he'd run through the lines. Very powerful, very strong, but it was never clinging, you know? So that's kind of where I'm curious about.
Yeah.
I spend my time in the mornings and the evenings thinking about my goals, and I get frustrated about how am I going to...
But like you say, and that's a great takeaway from this episode for me, is like, if I want to be better, being better is being more calm and at peace. Okay. So that's the mindset switch. It's like, you're not actually being better by just doing more. You're being better by doing less and being calmer, and just, you talk about flow state from time to time, and it's just getting into that state more, and also being able to just take the foot off the gas a little bit, because you couldn't drive a car in fifth gear all the time. So it's being better for me now off the back of this podcast is focusing on not being better.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah. Or are you a human doing, or are you a human being? So the way in which you be, the way in which you show up in the world, the way in which you vibrate, right? I'm not going to go into energetic frequencies, anything into the manifestation stuff. It's not really my thing. But we do vibrate at a certain frequency. You meet people and you feel that. We call it vibes, right? You feel the vibe and you're like, that's cool. Or I'm not really sure on that. But for you, sometimes, and I see this with coaches as well, when they're so deep down the personal development rabbit hole, and they're like, I'm going to start putting like this little bit of Himalayan salt in my water, and I've got to sort of get sunlight exactly at this time. And you kind of forget that actually, if you want to go faster, sometimes you need to be a bit smoother. Or how do you become a bit smoother? You need to go a little bit slower. And have you ever done any track days in like a supercar or race cars or whatever with an instructor next year?
No, I did do the whole Lambo rental the last time I was here, but it wasn't on a track.
So like when you have a racing driver and instructor, often when the lads get in the car, they want to go in really quick, so they accelerate down the straight and then they brake really intensely around the corners. And what they teach you is, if you want to go fast, you need to go smooth. If you want to go smooth, you need to go slower. So when you're hitting the corners of life, it isn't necessarily being tense and going so quickly. Actually, it's hitting the corners in a much more smooth way. So when you accelerate out, you're not, it's coming down from a dead stop. You've already got that momentum. So,
and I think like you constantly have got this feeling that you don't have enough time, in the sense of, I see this from clients and things like that, where they've got all these goals that they need to achieve within a set week, and they don't have time to fit it all in. And that's what we're trying to work on with them, and that's kind of probably similar for me. It's like, you've got this goal, you've got this target, and you've got this thing or number of things that you need to do to get there. But what could be possible if you allowed yourself a little bit more time and actually give yourself the opportunity to enjoy the actual journey?
Yeah. Like for me, high performance is having enough tension that you're up for it. Too much tension, it then impacts your ability to perform. Not enough tension, you're kind of bored. And it's finding a nice level of creative tension that enables you to be productive, enjoy the journey, but at the same time, so tense. We see it in boxers all the time. Boxers get too tense. They're not delivering those powerful right hands. If you looked at Mike Tyson, people think he's an animal, he can hit hard. He was very smooth. His movement was very smooth. The way in which he rotated his body and his arms, he could hit really hard because he was smooth and relaxed, but he's still tense. So you need a balance. But that's kind of the thing I was curious about. It's like, right, well, he's spending all of his time thinking about these goals and getting tense about these goals. It just feels like wasted energy.
Yeah, no, I love it.
Go. I think you'd probably get a lot more done in less time and get to your goals faster. It's a paradox.
But that's a huge takeaway that I didn't think that I would get from doing this. And I think sometimes that's the thing. Whenever you go to be coached, you hire someone to support you with any area of your life, whether it's mindset, whether it's health. I think sometimes you don't think about the benefits you could actually get, or maybe you're unaware of what's going to come up. So it's like whenever someone comes into a session with you or they join our program, they don't necessarily know how things are going to change. And on the change front, you know, for me, and this is the question I'm just curious to ask you, why do you think people are resistant to change?
Yeah, change represents death. Like evolutionary, like change was not good. We'd stay on our little patch of land that we know is safe. Don't eat the various different berries because they might be poisonous. Be careful of the various different snakes that are around because we don't know what they are. So I think from an evolutionary perspective, the people that embrace change often were the ones that died. Whereas we don't really live in that world anymore where it's the jungle and we're just trying to survive day by day. So you got to think all of our ancestors were fearful people and they passed on that genetic, those thoughts, that thinking. So why change? You know, change, it represents more energy required. Well, if we grew up in a jungle where there wasn't enough food, right? We evolved in a jungle where there wasn't enough food. We don't have fridges, you know, you don't have sandwich trees. It was like you had to hunt, find water, you know, keep warm and not get eaten by something. So I think change is an evolutionary thing, but we don't live in that world anymore. So we're living in a world that's changing faster than ever. Technology is changing faster than ever. So you need to learn to love change. But I just don't think we're evolved to do that.
Yeah. No, the reason I ask is because I think so many people are apprehensive about changing their ways, reaching out for help, dropping their ego and actually raising their hands and, hey, I'm actually really struggling with this right now. Could you help me? And I suppose everyone has a preconceived idea as to how it might look. So they think, oh, if I work with Jonny or work with Kieran, it might look like X, Y, and Z. And they've created this story based off their own beliefs and how they see the world as to how this thing might look. But also, that's why I asked you that question on the change thing. I was like, why are people so resistant to change all the time?
Well, there's different levels, right? There are levels of their partners sent them to do it, right? They didn't really want to do it. There's that. You're never really going to really win there. It's going to be pretty difficult. And you got coaches are very open to change because they want to get better. They've seen the value of coaching and those. You got somewhere in between where you kind of got like the skeptics, which are like, can I change? Is this bullshit? Is this all made up? Is this real? Is it not real? But for me, I like change, not too much. But I like, and this is what I like about this city, is that it's changing all of the time. So there's new stimulus, there's new stuff going on. There's a lot of people coming in, coming out, you know. So I like change. It keeps me engaged. But too much change for anyone can be overwhelming and scary and crippling. But I think in today's society, today's economy, and in so far as the future, those that can change and adapt the fastest, very Darwinian really, right? Those who can evolve the fastest to their environment are the ones that are going to win. And it really comes down to two things, right? For me, I work with clients that are either playing to win or they're unconsciously playing to lose, but they really value playing to win. So those are the ones that are afraid of changing because unconsciously they've slipped into playing to not lose. Mm-hmm. So why not choose to play to win instead? And that can be quite scary because it means letting go of old parts of you that no longer serve you. But I mean, I'm pretty lazy to a degree. I work hard, but I just hire experts in certain fields I want to learn more about to help me facilitate the change the fastest and the easiest way. And sometimes the easiest way isn't actually the easiest way. Sometimes it's the hardest, darkest, most uncomfortable, tearful journey. But I don't want to spend more time trying to figure that out for myself. Just like I wouldn't hire a plumber to come and fix my electrics, you know, or I would try and do the electrics myself. No, I'll hire an electrician who'll come in, knows what they're doing, fix it, get in, get out, job done. And that's kind of how I view change, is that. And change is the only guarantee. It's literally the only guarantee. So you better get used to the program, get with the program, because otherwise you're going to have the rug pulled from underneath you again and again and again. There's a great book called Who Moved My Cheese. Have you read the book?
No.
I'll gift you that one as well. Tiny book. Incredible. I've got a copy of it on mine, so I'll give it to you when we head back.
Sounds good.
Amazing. You'll love this book. But it all talks about change and how to adapt to it.
Epic.
So I've got one final question. I ask every single guest this. Forget my TMP company, forget all of that, right? Well, what does the phrase total mental performance mean to Jonny? If you had total mental performance, how would you know?
I think total mental performance for me would be showing up every single day in a way that fits with what I believe and care about and value, but also enjoy the journey. Because total mental performance, I think for me, is enjoying the journey. It's falling in love with the process. It's not rushing to the finish line. It's getting to a point where you can cope with challenge, because essentially challenge is inevitable in everyone's lives, and it's being able to take more from the challenge than it takes from you. So if I was performing with total mental performance, it would be going through life, going through the journey, and everything that comes up, you just keep walking forward. And it's like walking down a road and there's all these obstacles, and you just keep walking at a steady pace and nothing knocks you down, and you come out the other side and you still move forward and you still move further and you still make progress and you still get to your goals. So yeah.
Cool. Excellent. Thank you, mate, for coming on the podcast. It's been great fun. Where can everyone find you?
Yeah, thanks for having me. So yeah, just usual platforms. I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn now, so absolutely tune in with me there. Jonny Pierce, Pierce, Jonny. And yeah, our website's www.builtforbetterbusiness.com, and you can find out more.
Cool. Guys, if you love this episode, please leave us a rating. Please share it either on your stories or sharing it out to anyone that you feel like needs to listen to this. Anything else that you need, just look in the show notes and you'll be able to pick up any links. And for those that are going to be listening this week, we're doing a free public masterclass on ADHD. So it's making ADHD your superpower. So if you suspect you're on the ADHD spectrum and you haven't been diagnosed yet, or you have, that's going to be the masterclass for you. Again, check in the show notes. All the dates and all the times are going to be in there. Thank you so much. Big love. I'll see you all in the next episode.